Hey guys, this will be a walkthrough of the real estate development model by Tilt Analytics. We'll show you some of the features and functionality, and I think you'll see why we believe it's the best development model out there. Quick orientation, all of the inputs are on one sheet called the input sheet, and we'll look at that in a moment. But all the other sheets are automatically generated output reports. All of them are hyperlinked on the table of contents. You see there's actually more than 50 of them here. Every one of them is there for a reason. It provides some information that I've needed to answer at a certain point in time. Typically, clients will choose half a dozen or so that they rely on for their key metrics or their OM packages and so on. So if I, for example, hit my hyperlink over to the deal summary, you see that we have a layout here of a lot of the key information. All of the sheets in the model are preset, ready for printing. All of them have your company name at the top, and we'll just look at a few of them here. A popular one that you'll want to show your investors, of course, is the LP cash flow sheet. This breaks down when they put their money in, when they get their preferred return back, return of capital, distributions, total returns, net cash flows, and so on. All of the key metrics for the investors at the top: IRR, multiple, profit, payback period. And the print sheet is set up to show annual. It's also set up to show all of the LPs as a group. In the model itself, if I scroll down, I can see the individual investors broken out one by one. And if I go to the right, I can see all the information presented monthly. Similar for the GP team, we have a breakdown of payouts, and we'll see here, like for example, these guys have a non-cash equity recognition, which we can look at when I get into the input sheet. They also get, for example, other forms of returns, such as asset management fee if you want that. A basic sheet here that really is your whole project on one page is cash in, cash out. It's all of your cash into the project up top, over every source of cash going out of the project for the entire holding period below. And you'll see here that we have several rows that don't have any activity. What we can do in the model is in the input sheet, I can come and I can click show rows with data, give it a moment while the hourglass finishes. And we'll see that what it's gone through is it goes through virtually all the sheets in the model, streamlines them to show only rows of data that have a non-zero value in the sum. Here's the same sheet again, cash in, cash out, but now it's tighter. So now when we print, it's a nice, concise look of the entire project. Also, going to the right, as with the other sheets, we can see the same information presented monthly. This summary analysis is a good overall breakdown of your profitability. So up top, we've got what kind of profit does the project inherently throw off for cash from which you have to provide a profit to your suppliers of debt and equity. So in this example here, this project needs $24 million. From the day you start to the day you sell, it's $22 million in development and basically $2 million in operating expenses, but it gives you back $40 million in the form of operating revenues and exit value. So a profit of $16 million, that's a 1.67 ratio. That's about what you need for a good, viable go-to-market project. From that, on the debt side, you borrow $34 million, 15 of it with a construction loan, and then you have a refinance. And the debt takes basically $4.3 million in loan fees and interest, because you pay back about $38 million. From that difference, that 16 minus the 4 leaves them $11 million in profit for the equity. And so the equity puts in $7 million, gets out 19. So there's our just a quick breakdown. So if I often have a concern to say, why is the IRR low or something, the first place I go is this sheet, and I see, first of all, is the property inherently throwing off enough profit? With any development, of course, you'll need a good breakdown of uses and sources. This model actually has 3 of them, depending on how you want to present. The uses and sources is very smart in terms of it recognizes, for example, there's a difference between cash and non-cash items that can be in the project cost. So for example, you can have an appraised value in the land that's higher than what you paid for it. And the definition by the bank for project costs can be different than what your capital need might be. For example, the construction loan's often not going to lend toward an asset management fee. In this example here, this $500,000 in non-cash adjustment for land value is a non-cash item that is an adjustment to the capital need. So it's in your project cost for the bank, but it actually reduces the capital need that you actually need to come up with. Another basic sheet that's important to have is your cash flow from operations. In this example here, we have a mixed-use project, commercial and residential. So you've got your operating revenues, your operating expenses, and under that, you've got your debt service that you have to pay. Again, like all the other sheets, it prints annual. In the model, I can scroll to the right and see everything monthly. Down below, we have a lot of your key metrics, things like DSCR for the bank, different definitions of yield, and so on that people want to monitor. We're not going to look at all of the output sheets right now, but another good one is the exit analysis. Takes a look at basically what was your cost of development on the commercial side, what's your exit valuation, the appreciation between the two, and so on. We also have a look at breaking down some major cash flow events and then your major equity payouts. So for example, we've got NOI in each year, refinance events, exit proceeds, and so on. The return breakdown is a good look, side by side, LP&GP, you've got first money out, preferred return, next money out, return of capital, shows breakdowns of each tier in the waterfall if you go with the waterfall for distributions, and then additional key metrics down below, IRR, profit, multiple, and so on. Details on the waterfall calculations if the investor wants to see it. Project cost broken out for the bank. So the model understands that you have different audiences and there are different sheets that are tailored for different audiences. And so typically the bank wants to see your project costs, for example. We also have a look at some UnTrended analysis. The bank's going to want to see your P&L. Here's a more detailed look. There's actually two different versions depending on how detailed you want to get. Breaks it out unit by unit. A summary of the debt, construction loan, refinance loan, key metrics over here. The model also has a nice variety of sensitivity tables to show you what ifs. So for example, what if you sold the whole project off in a different year? This can be very useful. A lot of times your investors have a focus on either IRR or they say, just show me cash in my pocket. So they're talking about multiple. And as we see here, those metrics tend to move in opposite directions depending on your exit year. So that can be useful as far as knowing who you're presenting to and when you want to model out the exit scenario. There's also sensitivity tables on what if your hard costs are different than what you think they're going to be, what if the rents are different, operating expenses, vacancies, exit valuation, interest rate on the construction loan, and more. Some other chart summaries, a good visual of how the LP makes their money back. Break-even chart is nice. You get your cumulative development spend here. The dashed line is including finance costs, and then your total returns, cumulative NOI, and net exit proceeds in the orange. And you see that's when you become profitable, Q3 2030 in this example. I'll leave it to that for the output sheets. Let's take a look at the inputs. Just like the table of contents for the output sheets, the inputs are all hyperlinked by category. So I can keep up real time on conversations on Zoom with clients. If they say, well, geez, what if the exit cap is a 6 instead of a 5? I can just hit my hyperlink to my exit and I change my figures as I need. So back to the beginning, there's some tips on using the model. The model looks for certain common input errors, such as having a date that starts before you actually started the project or something like that. It will alert you. We have some other options here in the control panel. We already saw the showing rows with the data only. You can also do things like have the P&Ls present based on a calendar year or operating year. Basic information on the property. When does the project begin? You can have 20 different development phases if you want. They can be in series or in parallel. So for example, I've got a pre-development phase, and then I'm going to do some building of condos and townhomes first alongside all other construction, which will happen in parallel. But you see that the longer construction period is 24 months versus 12. So the condos and townhomes are done by March of 26. The whole project is done at the end of March 27. So if I go to my commercial component, here are my commercial units, I can see that I've got a couple of retail, a couple of office, and I also have a land parcel. So in this example here, the model is going to let you sell off a piece of the dirt that you bought, and you can indicate here that this is a land parcel, it's land, it's 1 acre, and it's for sale. You're not going to operate it. So the model understands that this does not contribute to your operating expenses and so on. And when you sell, you're going to sell with a dollar value as opposed to having any kind of a revenue stream that you can apply a cap rate to. So here on the residential side, we've got apartments that we're going to operate for a period of time, but we're also going to build some condos and townhomes that we build and sell off as soon as they're done. So these are for sale units. These other units are intended to operate. As I'm doing a project for the first time, I will scroll from left to right. And as I say, otherwise I would use the hyperlinks to get to where I need to be fast. Other nice features in the model is like we can lease up each different unit type on different dates and taking X number of months to lease up. So for example, I can have the retail leasing up before the project is complete. Let's push that out a little bit further though. Here in the residential, I can say, well, I want to lease them all up separately or at the same time. If I hit separately, I can independently lease up each unit type according to its own schedule, but I'm going to say, no, these are all going to be done at the same time. They're all going to start leasing up in January of 2027. Take 12 months to lease the whole place up. You got 10% of the units pre-leased in the first month, so 10% of the units start paying rent in the first month. We have multiple different options for how we want to input our rent levels. So on the commercial side, I'll do per square foot per year. I can indicate certain tenants are triple net and others are not. We'll see in the operating expenses, the model will match up triple net tenants with triple net expenses. On the residential side, same thing. I can even have different methodologies for different unit types if you like, but I'll keep it simple. Do the same for all, per unit per month. The model automatically knows that these condos and townhomes do not have an input because those are for sale assets. Can have other revenues on top of rents, parking, pet fees, and I can say, for example, 50% of the units pay a pet fee and it's an additional $50 a month, and so on. On our operating expenses, I can see here, I can break them out into categories if you like, reimbursed OPEX, and I indicate that with a triple net, and non-reimbursed OPEX does not have the triple net there. But of course, you can itemize the operating expenses any way that you like with whatever terminology you want. Again, you have multiple methods for how to input. On the residential side, we have an example of operating expenses. You'll see here, for example, as well, if I just want to do a fast pass, I could also just come in and say OPEX is going to be a percent of revenues. And I could say, well, just if I want to move quick in the model, I'll say, yeah, there's 28% of revenues on the operating expenses. And I can be done with that. The model also has ability on the residential side for tax abatement. So you could input your property taxes in each year. You could say I've got a 5-year tax abatement, input the amount of the abatement and so on. Year by year growth rates on inflation for the rents and the operating expenses for both commercial and residential. Year by year vacancy concessions, bad debt, if that's what you want. So I could say, for example, we're going to give on the apartments, you're going to give the first month free, 100% concessions in the first month. The model knows that as each unit type leases up, the first month is free. We've got an asset management fee here. You could say the land acquisition happens in April of 2025. You pay $1 million for the land, but it's appraised at $1.5 million. So that's where the $500,000 in non-cash adjustment for the bank project cost comes in. The model also has an option for horizontal development broken out separately from hard costs and soft costs. If you want to use it, you don't have to. Hard costs, I can tell the model, okay, well, it's tied to a development phase. I'm going to link it to, that construction loan is going to be linked to the original beginning of the condo and townhome construction, goes through the end of the construction period. And you'll see that we have numerous ways of inputting. How do you want to input your hard costs? In this method here, I choose per gross square foot, but I could also have chose itemized, where down below this section comes alive and you can list all of your individual hard costs and their amounts. There's lots of other methods, dollars total, and so on. Same thing on the residential side. On this one here, I just opted to have a total cost of hard costs for the residential. I just put in $12 million. Soft costs, again, can be categorized. You've got 65 different inputs for different individual soft costs. And importantly, you can link your soft costs again to the phasing. So the nice thing with this is that you can say, well, the model knows that this cost happens during pre-development. So that spreads between January 25 and March of 25. But then if something changes in your development schedule, maybe you say, geez, I thought pre-dev was going to take 3 months. It's actually going to take 4. I can go back to the soft costs and we see that the model automatically updates its timing because it knows that pre-development period now has been extended. Back to the soft costs. Development fees are easily set up to be a percentage of other things such as hard costs and soft costs, for example. I have 3% dev fee going to the GP. Our exit section, I can tell the model we're going to exit the whole project all at once on a certain date. If I do that, this section here comes alive. We input the date, but no, I'm going to say, no, we're going to sell units at different dates. And so if I look at my commercial, I've got each of my retail and office and the land parcel, and you see that I can have the retail and office and operate those until the end of 2030 if I want to, or even later. The model goes out 15 years horizon. But the land I'm going to sell right off pretty much. So then I can say it's 50 grand per acre. It's a 1 acre lot. We're going to value the office and retail at a 6.5 cap. You can have closing costs unit by unit. And then here we say, okay, well, if you're selling that land early, what are you going to do with the exit proceeds? I'm going to say we're going to give 100% of those back to pay down debt on the construction loan, because the bank, of course, is going to require something out as you sell off the asset base. So that's what we're going to do with that. Here's some exit metrics we saw on the output sheet. Residential side, we got the condos and townhomes. We're going to sell those off as they're done. You recall from the development phase, the condos and townhomes were completed in April of 2026. I'm going to say it takes 3 months to sell those. Going to sell those at $310 a rentable square foot. The rest of the units, we're going to apply a cap rate, 6.5 cap, based on NOI. Exit closing costs. The condos and townhomes, I'm going to say 80% of that money goes to pay down the construction loan. And here I can say, well, use additional cash, use additional exit proceeds to contribute to the capital stack, if we can do that, thereby reducing the equity need. On our construction loan, percent LTC, but I can also input the loan in different methods. I can do a fixed rate, or I can do a projections curve. You can download your SOFR curve, say, and input it here. And then you can tell the model to do a spread or a cap and a floor on those. I'm going to stick with a fixed rate for now. The model can already accommodate Mezz debt, multiple rounds of Mezz debt with an interest rate if you want to do that. Grants, which don't have to be paid back. You can have 5 different grants come in at different times. On my equity capital contributions, the model knows how much equity you need based upon everything else you've told it. And so we can say, well, how much of that money is coming from the LP? And I can have different ways of inputting. I'm going to say LP is putting in 90%, GP is putting their money in first. Along the way, as I go through the inputs, the model gives us key metrics at various points throughout the input, so I can always monitor the key results. Here's my uses and sources table. You have project costs for the bank, other capital need, and a breakdown of your sources. Here you have debt coming in, other sources of capital such as Mezz debt or grants. NOI is going to contribute toward the asset management fee. You've got exit proceeds contributing to pay down loan principal. That's going to be another capital need. We also have $500,000 almost applied to development costs and LP&GP equity. Here's our draw schedule on the construction loan. At the end of the development period, you can roll over into a Mini-Perm. I can also say, yep, we're going to do a refinance 12 months out. The model says, okay, well, what's your cap rate at that time? If I say 6.5 cap, the model understands that if you have a 1% closing cost on the refi, you're going to need a 49% LTV in the loan to pay off the construction loan. Loan details, let's say it went down to 5%, a 25-year AM. Percent LTV, I'm going to take that up a little bit. 70% LTV, the model knows that you've got a loan coming in that's going to be almost $19 million, going to put $5.5 million in your pocket after you pay off the construction loan. So good metrics there in terms of optimizing your refinance. And then really the last section of the model is determining how you want to do payouts with your equity partners. So I can say, well, the LP wants to have their IRR calculated from the first day they put in the cash, not based on drawdowns or model or project usage. Give them a 6% interest rate style preferred return. We have other methods of how to distribute. So we can do waterfall, fixed percentages, and GP catch-up, for example. I'm going to do a waterfall. Let's say up until an IRR of 8% to the LP, it's going to be pari passu, a 90-10 split. Between an 8 and a 12, it's going to be 80-20. And then everything after that, I'm going to make a 60-40, for example. So now I come over, I can see my return breakdown. Shows me the LP getting their preferred return of capital. GP gets return of capital. At the same time, you see the GP also gets that $500,000 in eligible non-cash contributions. So in the development team here, here's my capacity. The model has capacity for 6 different individual LP investors and 6 different individual GPs. And I can say the development team puts in 50% of the cash alongside a co-GP who puts in 50% of the cash, so $387,000 each. But the development team is going to get recognized for $500,000 in non-cash contribution for the increase in the land value. Yes, we're going to treat that as if they put in the cash and they're going to get return of capital. It's going to be recognized March of 2025. So that gets factored into their payout. And then once you hit the waterfall, tier 1 has differential payouts to the GPs and the LPs. And overall IRR to the LP right here is a 16.5% and a 2.8 multiple, or 2.08, I should say. And obviously you can tinker with your settings to improve those metrics for the LP if you want to, using goal seek or toggling your inputs. But once you've gotten to your individual investors, at that point, you've reached the end of the inputs and you're done. All the other output sheets have updated and are ready to go. So that's a good overview of the model. Thanks for watching.